Tars coming right up, and both players have pretty out there lineups, but I'd have to say Tars more than most.
More standard at first glance. It's got some strange stuff going on there. It's not the standard 4 deck list that most players have been bringing. It's kind of a hybrid of mid-range and control and combo.
Yeah, I kind of like it, and the guys talked about this in the opening of today, is the variation within deck lists and within archetypes is actually kind of nutty in this tournament so far. But let's kick it off. Game number 1, round 3, Seiko versus Tars. Seiko on the Hunter and Tars on his OTK Paladin, a deck I fell in love with early on in the expansion, but then I've just been focusing on other things. So I was like, I don't think I can just sit and play this deck for the next few months. I have to try and try my hand at some other stuff as well.
Yeah, it's one of those decks that I am just so surprised that it has managed to find a spot, because it seems like the most ridiculous combo when you describe it, where you have to hero power, bounce it back, hero power, bounce back, hero power, bounce it back, and along the way hope you don't roll the same Horseman of the Apocalypse more than once in a row. But somehow, every time, every meta, these kind of crazy OTK combo decks find a way. Yeah,
and most importantly, you've got to hope you don't die as well.
That's the big thing.
Often the case, and I think this matchup specifically always has a tipping point for me, at least from the Paladin side, where the Hunter wants to get very aggressive, right? Seiko's going to get down like Scavenging Hyena, going to probably use this Master's Call pretty soon just to be able to draw other things to play that have base Spellstone. Yeah. But once the Paladin player can clear the board late game, and then something along the lines of either Shivala or Uther at the main 2, and get that lifesteal rolling, often just Hunter just runs out of stuff to actually do unless they get Rexar early and pull Scary Beasts, which is the key thing.
I think that's a fantastic point that you bring up, which is that this is not a rigid combo deck necessarily. You can, you know, Uther is a card that can win the game without any of the other combo pieces. If you just completely lock down the board control, get Shivala down, even use some of your bounce effects on Shivala to get that heal going over and over again. It can really get to a point where, like you said, the Hunter, their damage never gets there, they run out of value, and you just run away with the game.
Tars probably holding his breath right now, just seeing what happens with Hyena, because he couldn't kill it. And Seiko, Springport has been drawn. 2 1/1 rush beasts. They're going to make this Hyena very, very scary indeed. So although it is manageable for Tars next turn with this True Silver Champion, it's going to hurt a little bit more than he wanted to.
Yeah, it's starting to take the damage, which is definitely what Seiko wants to do. Like you said, before that tipping point is reached, he wants to make sure he has locked the game out, which, you know, an unpowered up Spellstone, it's not the worst. It still does something. Just 6 attack to get on the board on a upcoming turn would not be the worst thing.
Yeah, you would bank on at least a 3/3 living after this True Silver, right? So it wouldn't be so bad. Seiko did go for the card draw, got the Diamol, and got some more sort of generation in hand there with the Subject 9's going to draw in the secrets to help with those Spellstones. Razormaw, obviously, very powerful minion since its inception of the game, and the Hyena there just for another threat later on. But suddenly, you know, the Paladins just got the board versus the Hunter, and this is one of the problems, right? This deck can also beat you up sometimes with Spike Ridge Steed as well, creating awkward to kill minions. This could just go wrong already for Seiko, because you can't lose the board this early as Hunter.
But this, I think, is really where the beauty of this Hunter deck starts to shine, because this for me is the first Hunter deck I think I've ever really enjoyed playing. Well, I mean, you're right, I haven't played Hunter in a very long time. It's not a class I do much with. But just the fact that it's so much more than just your classic mid-range Hunter, I find, with the ability to get these tricks rolling where you're going for Hyena plus Razormaw with a Tundra Rhino thrown in there as well. You can make these very sneaky plays that have huge results if you know how to hold your resources. And I think that's what we're seeing here from Seiko. He's not just throwing out his Razormaws and Scavenging Hyenas to die. He's holding them back, trying to get some kind of a big combo rolling.
Yeah, and I think the best way here is with his Hunter. Hunter in the past, and probably for most of its life, has been like a tree with one branch, right? There's only one way you're going to climb up it.
Yeah.
Whereas this deck has many different branches. You can go different ways with it, different play styles. Yeah. You throw in Rexar and Zul'jin as well, and that changes everything up. So you're completely right. There are many options to go for. And we're about to see one right now, as that looks like Subject 9 into a Secret, or maybe even to a Razormaw, trying to get Divine Shield on there, or some kind of buff.
Yeah, but going for the coin here is obviously first and foremost freeing up the hand space, but like you said, he can now go Secret this turn, Secret next turn. Oh, still ends up burning one because he hadn't drawn any Secret.
Probably the best one to burn, actually, against Paladin, because even Shivala being bounced often is isn't a problem for the Paladin. There's a lot of small, they can generate 1/1s, and also if they bounce a bouncer,
good point,
fine. That's also not a problem. So not the worst case there for Seiko, just throwing away that freezer trap.
Yeah, and most importantly, as is so often the case, what the secret actually does is not the biggest part of it. It's the extra 3 you get off the Spellstone, which is so important here, and definitely what Seiko is going to be moving towards, praying that there is no Spike Ridge Steed, because man oh man is Spike Ridge Steed just a nightmare for the Hunter to deal with.
Yeah, in the matchup, it's almost like timeout 3. Isn't it? Because like the Hunter just has spent so long getting through it. It's just a bit of a problem. And just looking at Tarz's Paladin list overall, he is running 1 youthful Brewmaster, so he has the redundant 3-2 bounce if it doesn't come out of Call to Arms. So there is just the 1 extra, so he's going halfway. He's not going the double Brewmaster that we've seen some players lean towards.
The thinking man's panda, as I believe it's called.
That's why I don't play it.
Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, so as you said, the secrets are there now, which is, again, like Subject 9 fitting into the Spellstone is so well, because you're just like, okay, prop these whenever I want. And now suddenly, the onus is very much on Tarz to deal with this, because this is the window that Tarz has to survive. And then if he does, he's feeling pretty good.
Yeah, because he has had a hand that did very well when it was ahead, because it was, you know, some of the combo pieces starting to come together, like Ancient Brewmaster and Zola. So if he managed to keep the board, he could go for the combo very quickly there afterwards. Now that he's starting to lose the board to this Spellstone, maybe to the Zul'jin as well, it's looking a little bit scarier, and he's definitely going to need something else to pull this together.
I actually think I'd love to see timeout this turn. Maybe should have been cast beforehand because of the implications of Wild Pyromancer that we can see. Maybe the draw's just okay. But the problem I see here is you need to Call to Arms, obviously, thin your deck and draw more cards, go deeper. But other than that, he had nothing else to do. And even next turn, he has nothing else to do. Like, there's nothing going to be good enough here, so I feel like the assumption that Call to Arms has to be used late game is often a bit too strong. Like, it's not just an ice block all the time. It's actually a timeout.
Yeah.
Because the sort of likes to say it's also a Frost Nova ice block because you just negate almost all damage every time.
Well, in that instance, it wouldn't actually have really got any value. All it would have done is forced the trades. Like, it would have meant it forced him into a certain line of play rather than getting you any discrete advantage.
He would be on a slightly higher life toll right now, though, Derek.
The way it's shaken out, it would have looked a lot better. I will definitely grant you that. I really wouldn't have hated it, because what did that extra 1/1 do?
Right, nothing. And the problem is, you have 2 in hand already. When's the second one going to come? And if you're playing timeout this turn, well, look at this now with the Uther draw.
Yeah.
I'm a prophet, Derek. I didn't even know this was going to happen. But, you know, this is the issue now, because it's too much mana to spend to get anything significant done. Uther's going to be great, because you do gain the 5 armor, almost 10 health, or to a certain extent, you get to swing with the weapon. He's going to be able to take down this Wind Fury Wolf, but still, it's just already, 9 damages on the board now, and the opponent's hand is full, which is the power of this new Hunter deck.
He has decided to take it the hard way. However,
carry on.
Because of the fact that he now has 2 timeouts, he can now just go Hero Power, Bounce Effect, timeout, and then do that again, and then just hope to get the victory on the following turn. Right. So he technically has just an avenue to victory already presented.
If he isn't just dead.
If he isn't just dead, yeah, right now. And also, he would have to hope that he rolls the correct Horseman. Oh,
that's 13. 18 with the kill command.
1 damage off, so he just literally needs 1 point of damage here.
Oh, there's the 1/1.
+1, I think that's just going to do it.
I believe so, Derek. I think that is just going to be the game, and out of nowhere, the kill command finishing it off, and that is the scary part of this Hunter deck. They have cards past turn 4. They actually have a hand. They can draw cards. It means they often have damage, or they have something to do in the turn, and Tarz takes a relatively quick loss on the game 1.
Yeah, most important deck that he needs to get a win with, which is this Odd Warrior. I think pretty much Tarz's entire strategy is to hard target Odd Warrior. And what with this being Conquest rather than Last Hero Standing format, Seiko has to be able to get a win with this Odd Warrior if he wants to take the series. So while it was obviously nice to get off to a 1-0 victory with that Hunter, this is really crunch time for him. He needs to get this victory, or he will be going down 2-1.
As often is the case in how Conquest has evolved in terms of how players approach it, there's often a break point in your lineup that you need to just get over that hurdle to be able to take the series. And as you quite rightly said, I think Odd Warrior is the one here. And looking at the deck list as we go over it pretty quickly, you can see the Azalina there, not always included. And also, it's double cube. There's the Zola in there. Nothing too crazy, I would say, from Seiko. More of a much more standardized list. None of these crazy additions we've seen from some of the other players to try and improve certain matchups.
Yeah, no quest, no dragons, none of that. Just the good old standard Odd Warrior. And, you know, having some meat in this deck, like you said, in the Carnivorous Cube, just being able to stick stuff on the board can be pretty good against Death Rattle Hunter, because often it gets to the situation where, you know, you can fend off their early minions, you deal with some of their Death Rattles through the use of Ironbeak Owl, but then after that, what do? They have all the time in the world with Deathstalker Rexar to just get that infinite value rolling. Whereas if you start to dominate the board with your minions like Carnivorous Cube, that can be where it starts to get a little bit more difficult for the Death Rattle Hunter in a matchup that is, I would say, fairly favoured for the Death Rattle Hunter. Yeah,
I think normally something has to go very wrong for you to be in a tough spot with Hunter, because you're also just allowed to draw your deck in this matchup often, you know, unless, as you said, the cubes get rolling and the pressure starts going on early on there. The discovery there from Seiko. Ziliax, Harvest Golem, and a Beryllium Nullifier. Ziliax just seems like an extremely solid pick, no matter which way you look at it. Because again, that's just good pressure. You can maybe kill off, say, a Terrascale Stalker and leave a 3/2 on the board as with Taunt. Pretty good.
Yep, showing once again the priority here for Seiko, not saving the the Omega Assembly right till the end, just getting it down, even attacking into the egg there, saying he doesn't want to let a whole bunch of Death Rattle activators get to work on this egg. Instead, he's just going to start dealing with it straight away, but just in time for Taz there. If he wanted to, we could see that Terrascale come down.
Yeah, it's also just a nod to the way Warrior removes minions, is that, you know, we can see the Brawl, we can see the Mech in hand as well, and those are going to be problems when there's an egg on board, or any Death Rattle Cube as well. So I think just getting rid of this egg makes everything cleaner, because Death Rattle Hunter specializes in making sticky boards, right?
Yes, it really does, which is why Odd Warrior usually struggles so much. And a lot of the tools, actually, which really I found helped the Odd Warrior before the most recent expansion came out, were Ironbeak Owl and Mind Control tech, I found, because it's difficult for the Death Rattle Hunter to keep their board at less than 4 minions, because they obviously have cubes, play deads, they want to go super wide with their Death Rattles. That was a very powerful tool in the matchup. Seiko, however, has cut both Mind Control techs from his Odd Warrior.
Yeah, I feel like it was secretly Hall of Famed or something not too long ago, because we used to see 2 Mind Control decks in almost every list. Yeah. And did I say Mind Control decks? Mind Control techs in decks, whatever.
Not the worst mispronunciation you could have done.
No. And now it's just nowhere to be seen. You just don't really see it anymore.
There's some interesting options here, and here are represented for Taz. The cube feels like the most jumps out to me the most, obviously with Terrascale Stalker in hand, and a couple of nice big minions as well, in the form of Devilsaur and Undasta, if you can get them cubed and Terrascale Stalkered. But maybe he wants something that is a little bit less reliant on something sticking on the board.
Yeah, I'm also just, as Taz, and it helps because I can see Seiko's hand, but when you just cube and leave something on the board without a live activator, you're always in a fear of this, of the Faceless Manipulator, right? Because suddenly, you just making the playing field even for the Warrior. It's like, okay, you've got a cubed egg, I have a cube, the eggs in the cube as well now, and it starts to get a little bit messy because Hunter can't remove stuff as well, apart from odd single target removal like a Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, it really struggles with the Death Rattles in particular as well, ironically, like the Odd Warrior, because it runs no silence, obviously, in the deck, with most of silence minions being a little bit too understated at the moment for Death Rattle Hunter to be messing around with.
You silence stuff with the zombies you make later. Yeah, that's the plan, right? Okay, well, Seiko going into his turn 6. He could proc the egg. So there's a 5 health, 1 health, 2 health on the board. Just run both his stone hills in, and then just try and snipe some of these. It's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, a lot of options here available. Could have looked at attacking in with both his stone hills to deliberately lower their health total and then go with a Dynamatic, but obviously with no way to deal with the 5/5 that comes out. I like just leaving this egg knocking about for the moment. Yeah. Just because he started killing it doesn't mean he necessarily has to commit to that plan if the situation changes.
Now the game's definitely slowed down now. We're past the stage where Death Rattle Hunter can just go crazy in there. It's like there's 2 5/5s on turn 4 onto the on the board, and they start beating the warrior up. And Seiko now has much more control over what's going on, and is actually winning on board, I'll say, if you pretend that Egg's a 0/1 and not also a 5/5.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. This, if these players look anywhere even on board at the moment, that means that Seiko is massively in the lead. Because if Deathstalker Rexar doesn't come down fairly soon, actually, for Tars, he's just going to be running out on value. Especially because of the fact that Deathstalker Rexar in this matchup is a fairly low tempo card immediately. On the turn you play it and the turns after, before you get a load of zombies in hand, you can just lose board control, which is really, really bad for you when the Odd Warrior has cards like Baku and Faceless to start punishing you for slowing down on board.
Yeah, and this is a really nice turn there from Seiko. Could guarantee the initial clear, so the Shield Slam cleans up the 5/5, because you cannot leave a Devil Saw on the board versus Hunter, because they will cube it and then kill you very, very quickly. So Seiko was really, for me, the first test that Tars had given him there in terms of a sort of game-winning either clear or don't.
Yeah.
And he did manage to pass that one. The tough part would seem very little removal, although after the Shield Slam you probably feel way more comfortable with this Undasta to just get it on the board, clear off his mech, and then say it's a 7/4, but you just Shield Slammed, you've got no minions on board, maybe this is just good enough.
Yeah, it's a 7/4, which Seiko...
Wait, do you Faceless the Undasta, kill them, and then get
You
Baku?
get a Baku. That's pretty cool, actually, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that interaction of Baku being...
Well, I'm just wondering, because Faceless could be very good for the reasons I said earlier. If you Faceless their cube and it's got something good in the cube, that's just insane.
Yeah.
But you might not need to if you just do this play.
Also, killing off that Undasta, I think, is quite important, and Seiko is realizing that because his opponent just played Undasta, got the overkill effect, but no beasts were summoned. Why would they do that unless they want to be going for some kind of a cube plus death rattle play just to get anything out onto the board? Like, their hand can only be so bad. Something has to be there, and if it's no beasts, no Rexar, the chances of there being a cube in hand is pretty good.
And now, forget about Undasta's ability of summoning a beast from hand. It's just a big dude.
Yeah.
And now Cube, Play Dead, or Terrascale Stalker, suddenly, well, now you have to deal with the Cube. Now you have to deal with the minions outside of the Cube as well. So this is looking a little bit scary. Again, Seiko does have Faceless Manipulate, and he can... Wait, how will this even shake out?
I was just trying to figure that out.
On the Cube and Brawl?
Like, if you go Faceless on the Cube and Brawl, or you could go Faceless on the Undasta, kill the Cube, then Brawl, but then you summon your Baku, which you don't want to do because it would die in the Brawl.
I don't know, Derek. It's like, this is a weird game right now with this Undasta on the board.
This feels like the least that could go wrong.
Yeah. I guess him winning with the Cube is a little bit... Would that be bad if he wins with the Cube? Because then it's just a Cube versus 2/7/7?
Yeah, he'd definitely be pretty behind. But there we go, the Baku being summoned.
It happened. Maybe not the other thing.
Ooh, but that is a super important draw there for Tars. That means that all of a sudden, the fact that he is starting to lose board control is not that detrimental, because he should be able to wrestle it back. Spider Bomb, Play Dead, plenty of stuff to be pulling back this board, and Rexar means value is going to be generated finally for Tars.
I did actually wonder then if he was going to do that actually this turn as well. Just Spider Bomb, Play Dead with the trade as well, and then just drop the Rexar, but he's going to play it just a little bit slower and be able to get that hero power off now.
And he can get the overkill with the Undasta to summon whatever beast he generates.
Oh yeah, that's way better. What am I talking
really
about?
Cool, yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
So he can just make the biggest thing he can.
And I didn't... Oh, that's not a bad one.
It cost 8. That's a big number.
Would kill the Undasta, right? I get I'm being.
Yeah, no,
you've seen the Baku. There is a Diehorn hatched in, and there's potentially the Matriarch that was shuffled in from the previous one, but it's unlikely with 17 cards in the deck. So you just take the straight up kill and say, well, we'll see what happens. Because right now, Undasta can't even kill this Zombeast anyway. We can see that, with the Zap it can, but you're not that afraid, especially with Rexar down now.
cube being found there for Seiko means he has a very nice little hand here to be working with, assuming that he can stay in a decent spot on the board. This is not a hand that catches up on tempo. It's a hand that pushes an initiative by having powerful minions. So Seiko here going to be making sure he doesn't fall too far behind right now. And he could end up in a very good spot if he does.
I'm staring at Azalina, Darren, and just thinking about what the game looks like. I feel today is destined to be same deck versus same deck, no matter what matchups we get.
That's true.
Because Seiko can also just wait a few turns, because normally Rexar zombies generate quicker than you can play them normally, so you end up with a few in hand. I mean, Seiko will know that the zombies in hand because you can see them be made and put in there. So then at some point, Seiko can be like, you know what, I'm done with what I've got. I'll just get your zombies. And yes, it's a low tempo turn because it's a 7-mana 3/3 from Azalina. You just gain the zombies and you can have enough armor to outweigh the tempo to a certain extent. So we could just be seeing kind of Rexar on Rexar action here.
And Seiko, Tars will know that as well. He will be making sure to trim his hand down to cards that work for him, but not his opponent. Like if he can get Death Rattle activators where he has Death Rattles, but his opponent has none. There's a lot of hand tracking that needs to be done here if you want to play it optimally. This has got to a very difficult situation for both players.
He could also just do it where he almost like tries ultimately to try and get playable beasts every turn. Even if they're not as powerful, they're playable. So you can just throw them down every turn and just churn them out.
I imagine that will be what he was doing for the foreseeable future, as Doompact is just thrown down straight away. He realizes Beryllium Nullifier, just a bit too scary. Don't want to be dealing with that. I can't even Hunter's Mark it. But with King Crush being thrown away, the amount of beasts available to be pulled off of Katharina is definitely starting to thin out a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit worse. No cheeky Dire Frenzy or anything in Tarz's Hunt. I just gave it a quick glance there, just because you never know nowadays.
I mean, that'd be really, really good.
And I spoke to Sol about this card earlier. I was like, it's one of the worst cards in the game, isn't it? The 2/4. I feel like we've seen many of them today.
The unpowered.
Yeah, the unpowered bad bot or whatever it's called. I don't know. It's a terrible minion, isn't it?
It's not that bad.
Really?
Well, I mean...
Have you ever seen it even attack, Derek?
Well, no. That doesn't make it bad.
It's just 2/4 that can never attack. It's okay.
Have you ever seen Devilsaur Egg attack?
Yes. Keloseth.
I disagree. False.
Okay, let's see what Katharina pulls, if anything.
Yeah, I think it's...
I believe it's nothing.
Oh, wow.
We've seen the Grizzlies, right?
Oh, the Grizzlies. Wow, I thought there was at least one left, but you are correct. That is a pretty miserable Katharina, though. And definitely, this game has really not been going in the way that Tars wanted it to go, and now it's really starting to slip away, because like you said, Seiko may get a hand of cards that he doesn't want, or he may just get a hand of nothing at all, which is the perfect Azalina.
Right.
This is like close to the Azalina that people were originally theory crafting when it was first announced. You play it in like an aggro deck, and you dump all your cards and then refill at the end afterwards.
I played it in Hunter.
Yeah.
Because before Hunter could draw cards, so it's like, well, you run out of cards by turn 7, just play it and get stuff. But yeah, this is a win-win, as you said. At worst, Seiko just has stuff to do, even if that stuff's mediocre.
Avatars here. While we have seen earlier on in the day the power that Hunter can accrue with shuffling cards back into its deck, you need a double Dire Frenzy in order to be pulling that off to shuffle. I think it was 24 cards into your deck in the first game of the day. None of that possibility is here for Tars. He needs to hit exactly Raptor Hatchling off the Builder Beast to be shuffling anything into his deck at all, I believe. And even then, he knows that Fatigue is just not really a realistic win condition. He has to get the ball rolling as soon as possible, which is blooming tough. This board from Seiko is going to be really, really scary.
Yeah, and with none of the more stranger tech inclusions I've seen, mainly because I've tried them, of like, crushing walls or anything like that, there's no way to nicely deal with this board. And
a weird play there from Tars of going for the popping of the cube there, but it worked out really well, because if he had left it up, Seiko could have gone for exactly Azalina into a Death Rattle activator.
Right.
And I wonder if Tars just had that hard read. The way he's been playing out cards incredibly liberally throughout this game, just trying to dump everything out of his hand. I would be very unsurprised if Tars just had a hand read there that was Azalina.
Yeah, and when Seiko's been quite liberal with his use of his hand and only has one card that if Tars has been tracking his hand all game,
yeah.
What is it? You know, like you said, well, it's extremely likely it's Azalina, and it's a really heads-up play because if that turn happened, Tars probably just loses.
He would have just lost.
It would need the exact Poisonous Bloatbat AoE, right? Yeah, you know, to actually clear and hope to even win from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, normally that's just a losing play, and somehow, again, a warrior's a hunter now. A priest was a warrior earlier. I just don't even know Hearthstone anymore. Some could argue I never knew it in the first place, so I'm going to be quiet now.
To it. Yeah. Can't have any fun. But as we were saying, I was praising Tars for his play because I think it was a good hand read. That does not necessarily mean he is going to be rewarded for it with a victory. I think it increased his chances. It didn't mean he was completely blown out of the game. As there is the Wrapped Hatchling if he did want to go for some shuffling into his deck. But
I think most importantly at this stage, there's a Vicious Scale Hide.
Vicious Scale Hide, yeah.
That is just... If you don't know the beast that well, and that's an option, just pick it.
Yeah.
Because it's almost always good.
Pretty
Rush and
always
Lifesteal, and a decent stat line of just adding a bit more health to a minion that's powerful on board. It's just always a good option.
But how does Tars really start to come back from this at all? Obliterate at this point, it's too much damage to be taking 9 just to destroy one of these matriarchs, whilst also buffing up that hyena.
And this is also just one of the issues, and it's probably good because Death Rattle Hunter needs some kind of weakness, but the Devil Soul was drawn and King Crush was discarded.
Yeah.
So there is no big, beefy power play, deal a lot of damage, high damage to the warrior to reduce the armor down, to reduce shield slams, and so on. None of that happened this game.
Yeah.
So it became grindy, and then Seiko, with the Azalina to refill, has just won that battle with these cubes.
And that was a very cute play from Tars as well, with the decision to sacrifice off his Raptor Hatchling first, then killing off the Katharina, so he pulled out the Alpha Raptor.
Talking about, gets him closer to fatigue.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's...
I know, no, you're completely right.
I think that's just quite a good play. Like, he needs the tempo more than he needs the fatigue counter. Like I said, he never wins in fatigue anyway, but...
Fatigue doesn't matter if you're dead.
Exactly. It is, I think, looking more and more like a Poisonous Bloatbat or bust. I've already seen a couple of angry tweets from the pros today saying they've lost to Bloatbat plus Poisonous today. So, who knows? It could still happen.
I'm just working out how Master Shaw with Hyena and something makes at least an even board, but I don't think it does. The matriarchs are just too big and too difficult for Tars to actually just plow through here.
And this is another really good example, I think, of just what it's like playing against Seiko. It's not that you will lose every game. If you play at your absolute highest ability when you're a player like Tars, obviously you have a tremendously good shot of taking him down, but he gives you no maneuverability at all in terms of not necessarily errors, but the game plan not going your way. The way he just played out one drop and then coined out the Stonehill defender, tempoing out minion turn after turn after turn. He knew that he was trying to get into this position.
Don't see that every day.
You do not see that every day.
But yeah, I completely agree. One of the hardest things about Hearthstone is often a match is decided by who makes the least mistakes.
Yes.
And Seiko just doesn't.
He just doesn't.
It's kind of just like a 0 count, and then you can't beat that a lot of the time. It's very, very difficult. Things have to really go your way. The Hunter's Mark pickup helps a lot here, but still, that looks like too much damage for me.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be a dead Tars here, as it could even be.
If this 2-4 could attack, the game would be over, Derek, but it's a fine minion.
It can. Look at that obliterate. Yeah, game over with the Super Collider Lethal just to really style
Let's check
opponent.
the ordering first. Just going to make sure Seiko does this correct. We said he didn't make mistakes. Let's find out if no, of course.
Hey, there we go.
Rewarded. The
Good
one
lad.
damage dink to the face means Seiko is going to go 2-0 up versus Tars. And we said earlier, that was the hurdle deck, right? That's the one he needed to get the
self-survivability into the late game, obviously with Flash of Light getting a little bit of draw as well. And I think it's in a decent spot going up against Tars' lineup. There's obviously the mirror match in terms of Paladin versus Paladin, but here we've got the I believe, the Mechathune Warlock, which Tars is, I believe, already infamous for.
Yeah, it is. We saw a sprinkling of this last round, I believe, as we caught up with one of Tars's games earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in case you didn't believe your eyes, there is a cheaty ankle biter in the deck. There's two, actually. So 2 mana, 2/1, deal 1 damage, and it has lifesteal, which goes to help towards those the corpse takers, to keep try and get as much life as possible, because this deck you just don't want to die. You want to draw your deck, as Warlock is apt at doing, and then pull off the Mechathune combo for the guaranteed win, which, for those of you who may not know, does beat Paladin through timeout.
So many.
I would have guessed that, but I don't think I actually knew that.
I had to test it when timeout first came out. I mainly tried it in the mirror, because I was like, can I time out my opponent doing the 4 horse?
What does timeout say? Your hero is immune. Yeah.
You're not immune to winning the game, it seems, or losing the game, should I say. Just put it out there in case people don't know. It's a weird interaction.
No, it's a good way of... Good thing to explain, just in case. As these matchups often do get to weird little interactions, because this is not anywhere near a tempo matchup for the most part. Although, you know, I think there is, it's very much not outside the realms of possibility that one side or the other could run away with the board if we were to see an early Spike-Rich Steed coming down from the Paladin, or even just the Corpse Takers that we see here. Those are pretty resilient minions, which could maybe run away with the board. But like you said, vastly more likely outcome is that Uther of the Ebon Blade gets all them horsemen rolling, which, I mean, Seiko has his win condition in his hand right now.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy.
It's just all there.
Doesn't need to draw any more cards, he's done. I will say one thing that can be a little bit tricky about both these decks, but I feel it's more the Warlock than the Paladin, is sometimes you can't really empty your hand well to draw more cards. So because the Warlock's reliant on drawing the full deck, sometimes you have to just like, well, I'll just Mortal Coil this minion because I just need to get rid of a card, or just play a Corpse Taker down, or an Ankle Biter or whatever, just to throw it down. And you might not get the optimal value, but you need to empty your hand because your whole deck has to empty for Mechathune to work. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen on ladder when playing against Mechathune Warlock quite a few times when they have 1 mana left on the turn, just play Solarian. Just throw it down. Just because it's 3 cards out of the deck, it's literally just 1 mana. Destroy the top 3 cards of your deck.
Mechathune?
I have not ever seen that.
That would crank me up.
Slight addendum. You need the Galvanizers and the Mechathune first before you just start playing out your Solariums. But for the moment, neither side looks very much at all to have run away with early game board control. So it is just going to be, like you stated, a card draw race 100% for the Warlock. And for Seiko, he really doesn't have to do much, to be honest. He just has to make sure he doesn't die through some terrible set of draws. But outside of that, I think he's just in a really good spot to be taking the game.
He definitely is, yeah, mainly because he does have the acceleration of just having the bouncers ready to go. The one problem is, and the benefit that Tars has, is his win condition is definite, whereas Seiko can just not roll the correct horseman 20 times in a row. It can happen. I think the max I've done is 8 times. Wow. I've not rolled the single one I needed 8 times in a row, which was very frustrating, I can tell you. But that's the flaw of the OTK Paladin in this form, right? The game decides to a certain extent. You can nullify that sometimes, but yeah, in general, the game actually decides if you're allowed to win or not. Yeah,
it gets an awful lot easier if you have a horseman stick around for a turn, which is why there is still very much benefit to keeping board control. Yes. Even when you are going for the combo, you don't necessarily want to just completely throw it away and never bother with getting back the board, because like you said, it raises your odds of getting that combo just that smidge quicker.
Yeah, the reason for that is that if you have one horseman on the board, your hero power will never generate that horseman. It will always create a unique one that isn't on board at that time, which leads on to what you were saying. It ups the odds the more you can live on.
Exactly the same as totems with Shaman. Just if you have one on board, you'll always get a different one.
Just look at these 2/1s. What? I was going to say what year it is, but we're in a new year. New things happen, Derek. It's fine. We're just playing 2/1 lifesteals now.
I don't know if it's just the curse of being British, but I have a very difficult time not calling them cheeky ankle biters.
Yeah, I actually just thought that's what they were called. Yeah, a cheeky ankle biter. That's just a
cheaty. Cheaty isn't a word.
Yeah, we should just be discussed. We should have words that we can just change on some of the cards now. UK client, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. We'll sit down with Blizzard, take him to a Nando's, and teach him the ways. As we see here, Tars absolutely rifling through his deck here. The The Galvanizer being found, but obviously with no Mecha'thun, he just needs to keep that draw going.
Right, and this is what, it's not a problem because these cards are absolutely fine, but like, he may have had to just play a Glacial Shard that turn because he can't afford to fill his hand up and potentially overdraw. That's one of the slight problems that can have. So we do see Seiko did proc the Thalnos, which means, again, Tars' hand is full. It was just one hiccup I had when I played this deck. I was like, I have to just like Glacial Shard face against Priest. You know, just play stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's the same as with a Mecha'thun Druid or the new Hakar Togwaggle Druid, where you just have to play your entire hand of zero-cost spells on just nothing. Still for Seiko, though, I think with this board slowly starting to accrue for Tars, it really is just nothing to be worried about. Uther coming down next turn means he can get that health total right back up. Well, I suppose he can't actually attack with the weapon, which was part of Tars' reasoning to go for the Glacial Shard on this turn, but even then...
There was also a nod as well to how this matchup works. Normally, if you run weapon removal against OTK Paladin, you remove this weapon, not the True Silver we saw earlier, but often it does not matter because you draw your deck so fast. As we can see, Tars has 6 cards left, Seiko has 15, and the build-up is often quite quick for the Warlock, and I will say Tars does have to start dumping these cards, especially now we see Mecha'thun in hand now. He has the combo, so he can drop the Galvanizer. He doesn't have 2 though, right? He's still missing 1.
Yep, second Galvanizer and the Cataclysm is all he needs, but 5 cards left in the deck is really not much, and I think one of them is the Solarium as well, so if he was to get as the next 2 cards, the Galvanizer and the Cataclysm, he could then just let rip with the Solarium to burn the remaining 2 cards in his deck. But the main point I'm trying to make is Seiko, I think, is going to have to get pretty lucky with which Horseman he rolls, or he's just going to run out of time.
Yeah, oh, that's a big deal as well, because the problem with Solarium is you can't Solarium if Cataclysm's still in the deck.
Yeah.
Because you need to play it in the combo. If it pulled a Galvanizer, well, you just play it. It's just 2 mana. It's fine, as long as you have Mecha'thun, of course.
This Mecha'thun is nuts. Seiko has done everything he could do. He had the Uther on curve. He only played it last turn. He had it on curve. And he's just, it doesn't look like he's going to get anywhere close, even if he gets a different Horseman every time he presses the button.
You say that, but he still has to empty the deck, which, yes, he can do in a turn, but then he has Godfrey he needs to play. Which, okay,
no, he doesn't have to because Cataclysm discards his hand.
I've been thinking about too much Druid. I've been thinking about too much Druid there. Okay, Mecha'thun Druid, that's maybe later.
Yeah.
Let's focus on Warlock for now. You're right.
No, this is literally
absurdly
he
fast.
wins next turn. He just goes Novice Engine. Oh, he doesn't even need to play Novice because he has the Galvanizer
he draws
now.
Yeah. He gets the last draw next turn, and then the game ends in Seiko. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you've got the cards in hand if you're never going to get there.
He can even go for the Ziliax, magnetized on or not. It obviously doesn't matter to kill off the Horseman, just so there's no chance.
Yeah, and there are benefits and drawbacks to both Mecha'thun lists of Druid and Warlock, and this is the benefit of the Warlock one. As I messed up, you don't need to play all your cards like you do in Druid, because Cataclysm does that for you.
And this is what always seems to be the case between these combo lineups, where until you've played it a couple of times, it's really difficult to predict who's going to be in the lead, but they usually end up going very similarly the vast majority of the time, because it's just one deck just does their combo quicker.
Right.
And even as we see here, Seiko wondering, maybe I got the interaction wrong.
Wait,
maybe
I've not tested this. Okay, time out. I am immune. Blizzard say so. It's just going to be like 2 kids fighting over rules of their playground game.
Yeah, the benefit of Hearthstone is shall not come to fisticuffs, as Tars does manage to take the victory. He knows how this works, doesn't need to mess around with any kind of nonsense from the OTK Paladin, as Seiko takes his first loss of the series in what I have to say was a very surprising fashion. I just thought, looking at that opening hand, how does Tars win? Seiko had everything.
Yeah, the biggest deal is as I said at the beginning, is the finality of the way Warlock...
Be pretty important with the way the game goes, because I remember I had a lot more experience with OTK Paladin before the Witchwood rotation, way back when, with the Burgley Bullies and Auction Master Beardo, and that mirror back then, I was told by Caravaggio, who was the real master of that deck, it was a lot more about tempo, about board control, finding those call to arms, rather than about the end game OTK. Obviously, that could have changed fairly drastically since then with a lot of the stalling cards added in, like Flash of Light, Timeout. Maybe that means you have to go more for the OTK.
It's one thing that if we'll just touch on the previous game just for a second while this crazy fast matchup gets all underway. Haha. Maybe that was the issue with Seiko's hand. He had the combo and nothing else. And if you're not pressuring the Warlock, they can spend all of their mana on card draw freely because they're not getting beat up. Because one thing you can do versus Mechathune is put them to 4. And then they can't combo you because they die. So, there was zero pressure, which meant Tars could just draw, tap, tap, tap with no problems whatsoever. But let's get to this mirror.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe the win condition, the best way to win is to go coin Call to Arms into Tarim, and then just hope to smoke your opponent down. But again, I think Seiko played the best he had with the hand that was dealt to him that last game. And here, it's looking like he's got a pretty decent hand. I am mainly referring to Call to Arms, which is still just absolutely insane in this matchup. Getting those cards out of your deck, hopefully pulling out them loot orders to get the draw rolling even more.
Yeah, and there are odd times in the matchup where, again, you can actually beat your opponent up in the mirror. And Tarim is a big key for that one.
Absolutely.
But often, Call to Arms trumps everything else because it thins your deck so fast. It's almost like 5 mana, draw 4 to 5 cards sometimes. It's absurd. And Call to Arms matched by Tars. Okay, we've got a game.
We do indeed. Both players getting off to a very nice start. And in any kind of matchup where both decks are very Death Knight reliant, as this one absolutely is, I like it when either both players find him at the start or neither player does. You don't like the games where one player just runs away because they find the Death Knight and the other one doesn't. So with both players here, it's a race to find that Uther just to get those horsemen rolling.
Okay, so it looks like Seiko may be considering Zola in the Thalnos as a guess, just for more card draw. He does have a few options, and the reason Zola can be played is because he has a 2-mana Brewmaster in hand. Which effectively, just imagine the Brewmaster is now Zola, because it does the same job, almost. And because he has it in hand, it means it isn't going to be drawn by a Call to Arms #2, so it's just a guaranteed bounce.
Yeah, there's interesting implications, because he's kind of turning Zola into another card draw, which obviously draws him closer to Uther, which I said is the main thing he's looking for. But it also means he has to draw another bounce effect, which he's just thrown away from his hand. Even though he has the ability to do the combo still, he now has to find 2 Brewmasters instead of just the one. It gets an awful lot more complicated. I think I like going for the extra card draw, though.
I do. I also will mention that Seiko is running 2 Youthful Brewmasters in his
really?
deck.
Wow.
I believe so, unless I'm going to look really silly now.
No, you're right.
No, he is running 2. So, again, he's got an extra bouncer as well as the
that'll be nice.
And also, who cares about bouncers if you don't draw Uther, right? Like, they don't matter to a certain extent.
That's true. One of the kind of secret uses that becomes, well, I suppose not so secret, but the tertiary uses of these bounces, as I said, is on Shivala, which is somewhat less useful in this matchup because they're not going to be going for damage, probably more the OTK. But even so, you know, it's not like these bounces are completely dead cards until you draw Uther. You can get some value.
Depends how the matchup's going. You could bounce Tarim, for example. You can bounce Lunessa to draw more cards. You know, there are multiple options. And one thing that we'll touch on that we talked about in the previous match was with OTK Paladin, especially in the mirror, you need to up your chances of getting a unique horseman as much as you can. And a late Lunessa, or even just a card with Spike Ridge Steed to defend the 2/2s, because outside of Consecrate and Pyro Equality, the Paladin can't get to them. There's no silence. You can't get to the 2/2s. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Righteous Protector drawn. It is held on to just say, okay, Righteous Protector, Spike Ridge Steed, Hero Power, go. And try and go that way.
I completely agree. And I think things like that are what make this matchup not quite so heinous as a lot of the pros would have you believe. Because, you know, every player has matchups that they personally really just don't enjoy playing. They don't like the way it flows. It doesn't suit their play style, whatever. But I think this matchup doesn't maybe quite deserve quite so bad of a reputation as it's gotten already.
It's one of those things, you remember the worst parts, right? That's it. I mean, you know what, getting killed on turn 5 by Oddrogue sucks too, but you know, that's just the way it is sometimes.
But again, obviously, when you can feel pretty sad when one player, if your opponent finds Uther and you do not, you have some legitimacy.
Or you feel more sad when you find Uther first and still lose because of bad rolls.
Yes, that feels
the low point, Derek. Trust me, I've been there more than once. We see strange timeout usage. but mainly to just keep the hand empty, because again, timeout doesn't beat the OTK, and neither player has gone for that sort of brute force approach of trying to just beat up their opponent instead.
Yeah, literally just to get it out of the hand, because, I mean, you know, what's it going to do? Just maybe he gets to the point where he's overdrawing with, if he finds Lanessa, I suppose. Obviously, he deliberately played Flash of Light on a minion rather than face.
Pretty common play.
Yeah, just so that it retargets with the Lanessa as well.
I'll say, though, that Seiko does, next turn, have the ability to start hitting Tars because of the Spike Ridge Steeds, right? Hero Power Spike Ridge, and then Hero Power Spike Ridge again, because, again, Paladin can't really deal with the death rattles, right? Like, you can't... Is that double time?
That was double timeout. I think that's the first time
making sure he takes
2 hands raised.
Yeah.
You have been stopped.
That was the one for the Hunter game, too. But yeah, like, at this point, Seiko can just, one, get these Spike Ridge out of the hand, because they hit Lanessa later anyway. But also, you can just start hitting him, because the Paladin doesn't really kill these minions that way. It's too much health. They don't have ways to kill them.
Yeah. I agree that at the moment that looks like what he's trying to move towards, because it's probably not his win condition. It's just like you said, it makes it more difficult for Tars to run away with a victory by having the Horseman stick about. But as soon as Tars finds the Spike Ridge Steed of his own, this board just enters complete gridlock. Like, nothing's attacking through anything, because everything has so much health. This is like the old Q-block meta, where it was just 5 Void Lords on the board at all times, and no one hit anyone for like 10 turns.
Yeah, and what it does is, you know, one, Seiko needs to empty cards out of his hand, so you play Spike Ridge, because why not? Yeah. But also, it just means that your opponent has to consider the fact that they're taking damage, and we see Gluttonous Ooze come down. So there goes the weapon, there goes the lifesteal. So
okay.
You can see it now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's the way Seiko's going to win, but Tars has to consider it. And the second Tars has to spend mana on defending, he isn't spending mana on progressing his hand, getting to those bounces, getting to the Uber effects.
That's true. And, you know, maybe with going for double timeout, he may be starting to think, yeah,
oops,
I'm Tars, I like a good meme, but even then.
Okay, so already 3 bounces in hand now. Just missing Mr. Uther.
Yeah. And Tars, I mean, he needs to find a pretty specific card as well, so the race is on, I suppose. Tars has the obvious advantage of, like you said, maybe he can stick one of the Horsemen on the board. Uther can just win the game without any assistance, just by sticking the 4 Horsemen the old-fashioned way.
Do you ever just like Shivala here?
What, attack into the Brewmaster?
Or maybe just
push
not?
face? Yeah?
Because the only way Shivala dies is like Wild Pyro, Spell, Equality.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Equality, Wild Pyro, Spell.
Yes.
Whichever, you know, whatever. So if that happens, well, the whole board clears, and it's still awkward because of the Spike Ridge Steeds that will create 2 forces. Look at this. Seiko beating him up. I said it's possible.
He's shaken up the win condition because, like you said, he still has another Brewmaster in the deck as well, in the youthful Brewmaster.
Yeah.
And before then, hey, this Ancient Brewmaster's a 4-mana 5/4. You can use it to just hit your opponent.
Yeah, it's often, I was talking to Saul about this earlier, where a lot of the time, if your first bounce is with an Ancient Brewmaster, then your second bounce, if it's Zola, you actually Zola the Brewmaster, and then Brewmaster the second bounce, your hero power, because you retain a 5/4 on board, which is very important in a lot of matchups, and just almost always positive. Now, this is what I mean, and suddenly, okay, so there's Wild Pyro Equality, it's the cheapest way to clear because Consecrate's the more expensive option, if he had it. But suddenly it's just reducing mana count. We can see the Brewmaster and Hero Power fits well anyway, but the second there's no Pyro and it needs a Consecrate, well, the turn starts getting messy then and slows the game down.
As we see Tars here finally feeling forced into letting rip with the Wild Pyro Equality clearing off that board as Shivala comes down. I will never get bored of that animation.
Shivala's just MVP. Just gets the job done every time. Wins your games. And does it very well versus the aggro deck. Because the second that nice Tiger comes down, the game's normally over.
Yeah, pretty much. That is, well, that's like the main use of the bounce effects in most matchups, against aggro in particular, is getting them down on Shivala.
Tars now 2 Horsemen out of 4 ticked off, and the 4th one doesn't matter because you always have it.
Yes,
is the way the combo works. Nessa coming down for Seiko, but is it just 1 draw effect, I believe? The 1 Holy Light? There's been no Potion of Heroism? No? Am I about to be proved wrong? No?
Yeah.
Okay, so only 1 draw, still not Uther, and
8 cards left. It's getting down there, man. And he's still pulling ahead on board. Like, this Lanessa is just a big tempo play. If he can be met with no answer or no board clear from his opponent, maybe Seiko can start to pull this back. But even then, just Sunkeeper. Tarim looks pretty good to me on this turn. You can take a value trade first.
Okay, that's a copy. So
we got a copy, people.
So this is what we're talking about now. It's pretty easy to explain now that you can see the board state. Tars has a duplicate, so he doesn't need to bounce it. It's useless. But Seiko cannot leave it on board because that one's down, Nazrim, I think that one is.
Yes.
It means that Tars' next hero power, if Nazrim's still on the board, is one of the other 3.
Yes.
So it ups his chances of getting one of the other 2 he needs.
Right.
So it still has to be killed by Seiko.
Still got to be dealt with. And if Tarim were to come down, now after, I guess, the value trade into the 1/1, there wouldn't be the ability without some extra assistance to be able to kill off that Deathlord Mansgrim. Which, I mean, you know, Tars can assume that Seiko has some kind of a trick.
Assistance is there, right?
Yes, exactly.
Almost all the time. He's going to do it, though, because really not much else to do, to be honest.
Yeah, he's obviously a little bit sad that he can't play out one of these 2/2s just to get a little bit more pressure on the board.
Counter Tarim. Oh no, he's actually going to push more damage, not put any into the Tarim himself.
This is the Seiko special, man.
I like it.
These are just always some of my absolute favorite series to watch. Is when people play control decks in the way they are not supposed to be played. Like, this is not what the deck is.
You just want control decks to be aggro decks, Derek. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Pretty much. Like, it always reminds me of when Muzzy won his tour stop in Copa America when he 3-0 swept Quest Rogue with like control mage, control priest, I think, and maybe like control warrior. Like, it was one of the most absurd series I've ever seen.
Something to bear in mind is the second Tars hits number 3, the game is effectively over.
Pretty much.
As there's no...
As long as he survives.
Yes, as long as he survives. Which now is what I was saying earlier about the aggression. He cannot hero power, bounce, and spite rage.
Yeah.
And he used double timeout.
No rest.
That's another Darian.
It's a copy.
Man, and Tars must be looking like he's getting quite a migraine there in his head.
Hey. I wonder how many people actually get that, because they may not know the full name of the card.
Yeah, I mean, also, it has to be a joke to be gotten, and I'm not sure that qualifies.
I think if Admiral was here, he would say that was a hard C-. Okay, but the important thing here as well is now the decision from Seiko is Uther or Tarim.
Hello?
And I think
Hello?
Tarim might be better because he's just committed. The Uther's great for the damage, but the 5 damage doesn't really change this too much.
Yeah.
Although he can swing in, put a 3/1 in, Shivala the 2/6, and then push for 8.
Yeah, like I'm looking at...
Maybe Uther's better because you can always...
Well, no, I'm looking at attacking with the Shivala Consecration. Oh,
and then you lose 2 3/1s, right?
Yeah,
I think Uther's right. Yeah, I think you Uther, put the 3/1 in, and then just Shivala down the 2/6, and then just push. Because you want to defend this Spite Ridge Speed Death Rattle.
Yeah.
Because there's still equality. There's still an equality clear left in the deck, I believe, for Tars.
And as long as Seiko keeps the pressure up here, I think he knows exactly what his opponent can't do, which is hero power, Zola, Steed. There's just 1 mana, not enough. And that means what can Tars do now?
It just doesn't help, right? It's just... And everything's too much. This weapon will not get destroyed. The weapon hits through... So Seiko just does that again, except he has Tarim in the weapon this turn.
Yeah.
So he can Tarim trade 1, kill it off anyway, and just push through for more. So I think that's just game.
I mean, it's looking that way. Can Call to Arms get like a Righteous Protector? I think there's only 1 in the deck, and I think it might have already been pulled off of the first Call to Arms.
Oh, Tars only playing 1?
He's only playing the 1.
Oh, I don't know about that, Tars. I like some crazy deck building myself, but Righteous Protector is a very good card.
Very good card.
And this is what... You don't give the Paladin the mana to actually get anything done.
Yeah.
The pressure's insane.
And I mean, fair play to Seiko, because he has been playing to this for a while. As soon as he bounced that Shivala, I knew that he had switched 100% in his mind. This is his win condition. His opponent is always winning the OTK race. So let's just kill him so he can't even get there. Tars knows he's very much on the ropes here.
There's the one he needed. I didn't even see that card. Oh, equality. Yeah, equality hit, and that's going to be 8.
Or just bounce back
or
the Shabala.
back.
That's just it.
Seiko, do what you want. You have won this series in very impressive fashion, in my opinion, because the one OTK Paladin deck I personally like, but the way it's played is extremely good. He did get the beat down, and as you said, hit that one moment. It was like, right, switch gears, go.
Yeah.
And he made it work and put Tars under far too much pressure. And Tars, maybe for the second time, regretting some time out.